Education. This is our sixth meeting of the session. I want to welcome everyone that's here. I do ask that if you do have a cell phone, if you would please just turn that to silence or vibrate. That is for members on the committee as well as those guests that we have in attendance for today. Greatly appreciate that as well. And also, just that I can get this message out before we start the committee, please know that there is a standing rules that there are no props, that there are no posters, anything along those lines that can be used during a committee meeting. We have the same rules on our Senate chamber floors. These have been long-standing rules as well as the committee. So if there's anything that becomes disturbing, please understand that can be subject to someone being removed from the committee room. We practice civility, especially in this committee, and I ask that you please abide by all rules that have been long-standing as part of this annex. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Here.
Senator Givens. Here. Senator Harper Angel. Senator Higdon. Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith.
Here.
Senator Neal. Senator Southworth. Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator West.
Here.
Senator Wilson.
Here.
And Chairman Wise.
Present. We have a quorum, or duly constituted to do business today. Once again, welcome to everyone. Do we have any members that have any guests that would like to introduce? Senator Thomas.
I do.
Senator, microphone, please.
As you know, Senator Wise, I'm always proud of my beloved Lexington, and I have teachers here today. I won't mention their names, but I have teachers here from James Lane Elementary, from Carter G. Woodson Academy, from Winburn Middle, from Sandersville Elementary, from Bryan Station High School, my high school alma mater, the Learning Center, MLK Academy, and Douglas High School. I would just like to ask all of them to stand, please, so they can be acknowledged.
If those guests will stand. Thank you, Senator Thomas. Thank you, guests. Anyone else? Seeing none, we do have two presentations before we get into our legislation, our bills on the agenda for today. And I would like to announce that February is Career, Technical, and Entrepreneur Education Month. This past Tuesday was Career Technical Education Student Organization Leadership Day, which was held here in Frankfort, where student leaders from across the state visited with their state senators and their state representatives. Today we have one of those leaders who is with us here to speak about the importance of these organizations to Kentucky students. And if we could have Miss Kelly Baird, if she could make her way to the table, please. Ms. Baird is representing the Future Farmers of America, where she serves as the state vice president. And Kelly, if you don't care, on your microphone there's a button in the middle. If you could push that when the green light comes on. And if you would just first identify yourself for the record, and you're welcome to proceed.
My name is Kelly Baird, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to address the committee this morning. I'm honored to serve as the state FFA vice president this year. I'm a 2020 graduate of Spencer County High School and a sophomore currently at the University of Kentucky, where I'm studying agriculture economics. I'm honored to be here today to represent over 138,000 students who are enrolled in career and technical education in our Commonwealth. These students are pursuing a variety of careers ranging from manufacturing to medicine. In addition to classroom instruction, they are receiving hands-on experience in laboratory settings, learning to do everything from operating heavy machinery to programming drones. Most of these students end up pursuing some form of post-secondary training, whether that is an associate's degree, bachelor's degree, an apprenticeship, or a certificate. Many of our students earn post-secondary credit during high school through articulated and dual credit courses. In addition to learning technical skills in the classroom, CTE students learn communication, leadership, and teamwork skills through their involvement in career and technical student organizations, or CTSOs. The 8 CTSOs in Kentucky give members the opportunity to grow as leaders, earn recognition for their accomplishments, and serve their communities through a variety of projects. Kentucky CTSOs include DECA, an organization of marketing students, Educators Rising, Future Business Leaders of America, Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, the National FFA Organization, HOSA, Future Health Professionals, Skills USA, and Technology Students of America. Together, these organizations have nearly 40,000 members who are preparing to lead Kentucky's economy in the decades to come. When thinking about the impact that the last 6 years in CTE and FFA have had in my own life, I immediately think about the timid freshman sitting in the school auditorium for my green hand ceremony. That night, I was selected to give the FFA creed. When my name was called to come to the stage, I panicked. I walked to the stage, grabbed the mic while shaking, and began. The FFA Creed by E.M. Tiffany. You would have believed that the gun had gone off at the Kentucky Derby, because I took off like a racehorse, eagerly waiting to come to the end of those beloved 5 paragraphs. That 14-year-old freshman was embarrassed, endlessly telling myself I just wasn't a good speaker and I would never be able to confidently speak in front of a crowd. Which brings me to this past November, the Capital City Leadership Conference at Anderson County High School. I was invited to give remarks and I was nervous. Nearly 6 years later, I had flashbacks of walking onto the stage and freezing. 6 years of learning proper parliamentary procedure, speech practice, teaching ag courses in elementary school, and planning officer meetings and workshops. 6 years of becoming a leader, becoming a speaker, becoming an advocate, becoming the best version of myself. Those 6 years allowed me to walk up on that Anderson County stage, grab a mic, and confidently speak to a crowd with a message and without a hiccup. FFA and CTE have given not only me, but the 138,000 members the ability to walk up onto that stage, advocate, and lead. Career and technical education and career and technical student organizations are preparing the workforce and leaders of tomorrow. Thank you for your support and for your continued investment in our lives and in the future of our state. Does anyone have any questions?
Ms. Baird, I want to thank you so much for your testimony. You've got a great career pathway ahead of you, and it's great to hear some of the things you've overcame, and especially with your work through FFA and all your leadership responsibilities you've done. We appreciate your testimony. Thank you also for your work in organizations and civic groups, and hope that carries on into your adult life, and best of luck in the rest of your studies with agricultural economics at the University of Kentucky.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Our next presentation relates to school safety, and I would ask that our state school safety marshal, it's kind of a tongue twister there, Ben Wilcox makes his way to the table. And during the 2019 regular session, Senate Bill 1 was the School Safety and Resiliency Act officially became law. And so we've asked our State School Safety Marshal to be with us today to provide us a current update about implementations and work that's been done statewide. Ben, it's great to see you. As always, you're a great resource to us. I appreciate the work you're doing. If you would, just please first identify yourself for the record, and you may proceed.
Thank you very much, sir. My name is Ben Wilcox. I am the State School Security Marshal, and that did take me about 6 months to be able to figure out exactly how to pronounce that. So yes, it's kind of a tongue twister. Chairman Wise and committee members, it is my absolute pleasure to be with you today to talk about the wonderful things that have been happening in the last 2 years with the rollout of the School Safety and Resiliency Act. I can tell you now that I feel that schools are safer now than they were 2 years ago, and it has to do with the amount of work that's been put in by our office, but mostly by the school staff and workers at our schools across the state. I've been asked to give a quick review of the State School Security Marshal. State School Security Marshal is to enhance school safety by monitoring school safety and security initiatives, developing reasonable training and other guidelines, develop school security risk assessment tool, and ensuring compliance. And that's what we've been doing for the last 2.5 years. I've written everything down to read to you or go over, because when I start talking about school safety, I can go on for a long time. We're very passionate about it at our office. Breaking down our office is we have 16 regions, 12 compliance officers, and 3 supervisors. All of our compliance officers are regional, as in they work in where they live. So all our folks from Western Kentucky will be doing compliance checks in Western Kentucky. We are on our 3rd risk assessment. We have 1,280 schools that we assess. In the 2021-2022 school year, we are at 58% complete with all of our schools within the state. We have 744 schools completed, with 536 more to go this year. Our goal is to have all schools completed by the end of April, and that will give us opportunity to do reassessments if necessary if schools are not compliant. Kind of give you a history of how our risk assessments have progressed since we started. In 2019, we came up with a draft for our risk assessment. It had not been approved yet, but we wanted to get out to the schools because we knew that the risk assessment that we had, we knew what the mandates were, and we really wanted the schools to know what those mandates were. We presented that risk assessment to the schools and said, you need to get into your schools, see what needs to be changed, see what needs to be fixed, and we'll see you in January. We were able to hire all of our compliance officers. We had them trained up by January 13th, 2020, and we started our risk assessment process. Our first risk assessment was basically, as we would say, is on us. We didn't put it into a report. All we did is go in and, most importantly, started building relationships with our schools, with our superintendents, with our SSCs, and with our staff. And we went around and looked for deficiencies, looked for things that were good, and we said we see you next year for the first actual assessment that would go into a report. Of course, March of 2020 was different for everybody. We were pulled out of the schools for about 6 weeks and then went back in about 6 weeks and finished up our first report. A lot of students weren't there in the buildings, but we thought it was very important to continue with those relationships that we had with our schools and prepare them for our first assessment. One of the biggest things I'm proud of is not only are we compliance officers that we go in and do an assessment, but we have a great relationship with our schools. And we've always wanted to put forth with our schools that, yes, we are a compliance officer, but we want to get you to a point where you are compliant. We want to get you to a point where you are following these mandates, and if you have trouble reaching those mandates, that we can help you get to that point. We've built several relationships all over the state. Our compliance officers are on first-name basis with all of our principals, and if they have questions about school safety, they call. They call our compliance officers. Before we had them hired, my phone rang off the hook. Now it doesn't ring very much anymore because they're talking to their regional compliance officers about safety. We also do training. We do advising. If we have a new principal or a new superintendent or new SSC, we go into the school and explain them the process. One of our biggest relationships that we have is with the Kentucky Center for School Safety. They're the folks that are they have all the answers when it comes to school safety, or we like to think they do. And if we run into issues where we can't help, we send that over to KCSS, and that may be an emergency operations plan. We may look at one and say this needs some tweaking. We send it over to John Akers and his folks to get that worked out. Or threat assessment training. We have a threat assessment team, but we need training on it. Kentucky Center for School Safety will take care of that. We work directly with the schools with that. I'd like to go over some of our collaborations. We collaborate with Kentucky Department of Education, Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities, Kentucky State Police, local first responder agencies, all the K groups. I can't name them all, but that was one thing I had to learn what all the K groups was. That was about a week's worth of training. Kentucky Association of School Resource Officers, especially KCSS, and we work very closely with our SRO training at DOCJT. We look at our SROs in the state as very valuable in our jobs and going and doing assessments. So we make sure that we train all of our SROs on our assessments and how the Marshal's office works. We work directly with the Department of Criminal Justice Training, KCSS, and KDE on our active shooter video. We've put 2 videos out. We'll be redoing that video this year. And we work diligently with that. It was very difficult to do a active shooter video in 2020 due to COVID. If you watch the video, one of the teachers that's in that video is actually my wife. That was very nice of her to volunteer, but it was hard to find actors, but she does a fantastic job. One of the main points I want to hit today that we're really working hard for across the state, of course, is mental health. And one thing that sparked from this School Safety and Resiliency Act was our Handle with Care program here in the state. And we are one of the only states, if not the only state, that has a statewide Handle with Care program. If you've not heard what Handle with Care is, 158-44165D is the trauma-informed approach that all schools must have. Within that trauma-informed approach, there has to be a connection between law enforcement and schools when it comes to childhood trauma. So therefore, if an officer responds to a house and there's some type of childhood trauma, that officer would be able to make contact with the school to give them a heads up of that childhood trauma. The Handle with Care program fits that bill perfectly. That's a program that started in West Virginia, and it started kind of regionally here in the state of Kentucky. The Kentucky State Police took it and ran with it. And now we have a Handle with Care program that is directly connected to the KY Ops system in every police officer's cruiser in the state of Kentucky, which means that if an officer from Fort Thomas responds to a call and there's a child present and it's a traumatic call, or the officer believes it to be traumatic, and that child goes to school in Madison County, when they put that into the KYOP system, that email goes to the school there in Madison County. So the students are not lost on being around the state, I should say. One thing we did run into, is we have 100% the schools in the state of Kentucky are using the Handle with Care program, but we've got another side to that. We have to have our officers to make those notifications. When COVID hit, that kind of fell off because school wasn't in. We've been actually driving across the state of Kentucky, and when we do our assessments, our compliance officers are visiting with every police department, sheriff's office, park ranger location in the state, and handing out stickers that say, don't forget about the kids, do your Handle with Care notifications. We also are handing out posters to those officers to make sure they remember, and the reason why we did such small pictures that fit on the MDT of their cruiser, just as a reminder. I want to thank John Akers with the Kentucky Center for School Safety. They assisted that with us. They're the ones that paid for the stickers and posters. We could have put them all in the mail, but a lot of times mail just doesn't get read. So we decided to send our folks in personally, so they're knocking on every door and delivering those. Kind of summarizing the data points of what we found in our first report. There's two sections to the assessment. The first section is the access control section that is directly connected to approval for new funding for building in schools. Looking at the report, we have 95 to 98% compliance on all of those assessments. If a school is not in compliant with that, we have the procedures to go back to do another assessment to get them in compliance, and that is basically going over with the school what needs to be fixed, and we'll go back in and do another compliance check. Section 2 of the risk assessment is necessary safety and security procedures that are not connected to building funds. We've got almost 100% on all of our mandates there, and we've worked with the schools to make sure that they get to that point. If you've read in my report or had an opportunity to, some of the places that we're working on are some of the goals that were included in the bill, and that's the goal of one mental health professional for each student, 1 to 250. We have a 41.88%. Schools in the state of Kentucky have a 1 to 250 ratio of mental health professionals per student. The average for the state is 1 to 328, and we see that number going up. Also, as SROs assigned full-time pursuant to state law, we have 558 schools that have a full-time SRO. If you go by actual campuses, we have 416 campuses, or 38% of the schools are covered, and that's out of 1,084 campuses across the state of Kentucky. Some of the challenges that we're finding in our job is not lack of wanting to follow the mandates, but we have a lot of turnover in our schools when it comes to SSCs or school safety coordinators, and a lot of turnover when it comes to principals. And that's when I say turnover, a principal may be in a building and move on somewhere else. And so if we've really trained up our principal and then we get a new principal or a new SSC, we do a lot of work to go back and train those folks up of the mandates of the School Safety and Resiliency Act and what is expected. We work a lot during the summer. A lot of folks say, well, what do you do during the summer? Well, we make a lot of trips and we do a lot of training. We train, if a school system invites us to come talk to their teachers about the School Safety and Resiliency Act, we will go in and speak with them. I've been to several individual school districts. Our compliance officers go to individual schools, and it's kind of like, we'll be back to see you. This is what we're looking for, and this is who we are. And so that's kind of been a challenge, but I think that's going to be a challenge every year, and we plan to take care of that challenge every year. Going on to SRO training and deployment status. I am not directly involved with training at the Department of Criminal Justice Training, but we do help a lot with the training with the SROs. Our numbers are as stated. SRO 1, there's been 559 SROs trained in SRO 1. SRO 2, we've had 191, and we have graduated 35 SROs, and SRO 3 having 35 fully certified SROs per the School Safety and Resilience Act, 120 hours worth of training. Really quickly, there's several things that were included in the bill that needed to go into SRO training, and of course a lot of those were covered in our SRO 1. What I thought was very important is that we looked at what the SROs really needed, and you take that first class and then you say, what are we missing? or what do you need more of? And we developed SRO 2 and 3 after that. And I can tell you the one thing that our SROs needed the most, or thought they needed the most, is mental health training. For example, we had trauma-informed action was a 1-hour block in SRO 1, is now a 5-hour block in SRO 2. We don't bring in just police officers to train that. We bring in the same mental health professionals that train teachers. Megan Martin, who was out of Abry, I believe she's out of one of the co-ops now, comes in and does that training, and our school resource officers eat that up. That's the stuff they need. They know how to be police officers. They know how to do that, but they need that further information. And also another kind of, this is really great, is every class past 512, basic class past 512, are certified in at least SRO 1. We are in class 528 right now. So anybody that has been trained from class 512 to class 528 in basic training at least has SRO 1. So if you've put in a young officer, they put 2 or 3 years on the street and then decide to become an SRO, they're already got number 1 out of the way. And that also helps if you've got a sick SRO and you need to put another officer in there. They've already got the first fundamentals of being an SRO in that training. Some other training that has been involved in the SRO training is legal authority, SRO, homegrown violent and extremism and terrorism, gang briefing, working with school administrators, active shooter training, the Handle with Care program. We do a discussion. I actually go in and train every SRO 2 class. I do 2 hours training on the School Safety and Resiliency Act, because obviously our SROs are frontline in the schools. They're the ones that need to know exactly what those mandates are. And I am a former SRO. I was an SRO starting in 1999 in Montgomery County. I did that for 6 years before I became an instructor at the academy. And I always said that the SRO is a specialty unit, just like a K-9 unit would be, just like a SWAT unit would be, just like a detective would be. And with the passing of the School Safety and Resiliency Act, it really brought home that it is a specialty unit. 120 hours of certification, and all of our SROs that come through this training are hanging their head higher, knowing that they're finally looked at as a specialty unit. And I can't think of another unit in a police department that's more specialty than an SRO. One thing that KCSS has done that we're very proud of, along with our SRO training, is we know a lot of SROs come out. They may have come from the road. They go through our mandated training, but they may need, as you would say, field training in being an SRO. And if there's no one there to do it, Kentucky Center for School Safety has started a mentoring program through the state. So if you've got an SRO that's been around for 12 years and then you've got a brand new one, we can connect those folks. So if there's questions, they can talk on the phone or text or actually visit each other's schools. And that's been happening with some of the new SROs that have graduated. Now, I knew I didn't have a whole lot of time, so I went through that without taking a breath. I hope that I gave you a little bit of information of what's going on. I can tell you that schools are in a good spot. Looking by our report, by going back into our assessments, we're not finding big issues. We're finding issues that can be fixed very easily, and we'll be back to see you to do another compliance check. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them right now.
Marshall Wilcox, thank you so much. Just a couple of comments leading to a question. I think we've got a couple other members who may have questions as well. You mentioned the kind of the notoriety and also some of the accolades you all are receiving, and I don't think you're also maybe giving that enough of what I'm hearing of the work you're doing, as well as John Akers. And correct me if I'm wrong, that you've had other states contact you all about the legislation, about the work you're doing, maybe and also from an international perspective. So you don't have to get into the details, but please know that the work you all are doing is very much being talked about across the United States.
I very much appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
You are very welcome, and you're very kind because you're very humble of the work that you and others are doing. My also comment will be for this budget session, as you are aware of, with the Senate Bill 1 that we did for SROs, for mental health professionals, is as funds become available. Mm-hmm. This is not an appropriation committee by any means. There are members up here that sit on appropriations and revenue and will have a lot of voice at the table, and I hope they hear the words that it's time to fully fund Senate Bill 1 as it relates to SROs and as it relates to more mental health professionals to help our students across the Commonwealth. So just a comment. My question to you, one of the things when we worked on the bill, that had both sides kind of uneasy at times was about locking of the doors. Mm-hmm. Can you comment a little bit more about where that's at with your inspections and your assessments of schools? Is that an issue, or how has that kind of been maybe resolved?
Well, there's two issues with that. The one is locking of interior doors during instructional time and controlling access to exterior doors during the school day. I can tell you, as of our last report, and I just want to read this to you right and get the right numbers. Classroom doors remain closed and locked during instructional time. We were at 92% compliance out of our first check. We're seeing more issues with exterior doors than we are interior doors now. And I think it's because we pushed the issue of reminding folks that interior doors need to be closed and why. And so, we're finding some doors propped open outside, and we're actually having more issue with that. And that's the first line of defense is our exterior doors, and our second line of defense are interior doors. So actually, we're not seeing much of an issue at all. It's become normal. The kids are our biggest advocate for that. If the door's open, we walk into schools and the door's open, and the kid will say, "Hey, the door's open," and they'll shut the door. And we've had several incidents over the past year or 2 years where those closed doors kept people from getting into buildings because there was not a time to call a lockdown, but those doors were already closed. There was a school district that we got information from a couple months ago where there was a lockdown situation in the building, and when law enforcement went in to clear the building, they could not tell who was in what room or if there was any kids in the building. And that comes from directly having that door locked, being able to close that window blind, getting in a blind corner, being quiet. That's exactly what we're looking for when we're having situations. And so I think people are embracing it. It takes that good leadership to go around and say these doors need to be locked, and that's what's happening. So we're really not seeing, we may find one or two doors, but we're not finding the whole school open.
Thank you so much. It was excellent to hear.
Thank you.
Senator West.
Thank you, Chairman. My question's really quick. Chairman had a perfect segue, so it deals with funding. We're in the middle of budget negotiations now. You've had time to look at everything. You've had a couple years to put boots on the ground and look. Do you know what is that number to fully fund the security and the mental health? Do you have any idea of what that might look like?
I don't have that number. I can give you the numbers involved in how many officers it would take to cover. I'm probably writing stuff down. I should just know it right out of my head. We have 416 campuses out of 1,084, so we're right out 600 campuses that still need to be covered by police officers. Mental health professional-wise, we're at a ratio of 1 to 328. We have over 90 school districts that have a ratio of 1 to 250, so that would leave about another 80 school districts that would need, 44 districts that have 1 to 250, so that would leave over 130 that still need to get to that point of 1 to 250. But I don't have a monetary number for that. I only have people numbers for that.
Okay. I'm sure we'll be able to find that out. Thank you.
Senator Givens.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and appreciate your words and your work. Elaborate briefly on the cooperation and coordination between SROs and mental health professionals in the schools. You touched on it in your remarks. Help us to understand a little better.
Well, there's definitely a correlation between the mental health professionals and the SROs involved in the school. The mandatory training includes 120 hours, and a lot of that is mental health. One of the aspects of the School Safety and Resiliency Act was to make sure you had a trusted adult in the school, and that trusted adult can be your teacher, your counselors, your custodians, your bus drivers, and your SROs. There's a lot of conversation between SROs and your mental health professionals. I'm married to a counselor, and a lot of times those counselors and those teachers and folks only see those kids in school. Your law enforcement gets to see those folks outside of school and have a very, very good idea of what's going on at home, what their home life is. As a school resource officer, I put several teachers into my cruiser and just drove to show them where someone lived, and then go, this is kind of why someone may act out. They may not be getting enough sleep at night because this is where they live. So I think there's a definitely a correlation of working together with our mental health professionals of the way our officers perceive and also our mental health professionals perceive what's going on in the school. From personal experience, I had a lot of students that related to me as a police officer because they knew I knew what was going on at home, and they felt like I was one of the only people they could talk to because I understood. Thank you.
Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Marshal Wilcox, I don't think this Commonwealth could have chosen a better person to be in the position that you're in, and thank you for always being so receptive for any needs that we have. My question is this. There was a lot of hesitancy with law enforcement being in the schools, and we've seen this for years. Are we starting to get past that? Is that pretty much a thing of the past at this point?
Yes. We've got several school districts I think would be very disappointed if they lost their SROs. When an SRO and a good SRO comes into a school building, they become a part of that school. And now that we have a lot of training for our SROs, and we have training, we can't forget our administrators need that training of, now you've got a police officer in the room, how do you utilize them? And KCSS does a fantastic job of mentoring those folks. And so now that everybody's talking and everybody realizes what they're there for, it's really working out. And we don't see a lot of folks that don't want to have SROs in their building across the state because it is working out very well for them. And now I think that the 120 hours worth of training is really calming the nerves of the officers that are going in because they understand what school is. They understand what is needed in those schools. So yes, I think that across the state it's working very well.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very welcome. Seeing no further questions, Marshal Wilcox, thanks for the update. Greatly appreciate the work you're doing, as well as mental health professionals, SROs, and all school administrators on the subject.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you
appreciate
very
your
much,
time.
sir. We have 3 bills for consideration today. However, one of those bills, Senate Bill 120, will be passed over today by the bill sponsor who made the request. I'm going to move to Senate Bill 102. It actually is a great segue from what we just heard as it relates to mental health. And Senate Bill 102 is my bill. I'm the sponsor of that. And it's an act relating to mental health providers in the school, Senate Bill 102. The purpose of this bill is basically just a cleanup language as it relates to Senate Bill 8 that we heard in 2020. We will now include with this bill language all defined mental health service providers in required documentation. In addition, where previously we had in Senate Bill 8 school counselors as the only ones who were listed, the annual superintendent report that would go to KDE shall now include the number, position, duties, and certification of all mental health service providers. The Kentucky Department of Education shall annually compile an ongoing list of mental health service providers by district and provide a report to the Interim Joint Committee on Education. Once again, just a cleanup language, and instead of just being school counselors, now adding all defined mental health service providers. We have a motion on the bill by Senator West. We have a second from Harper. I'm sorry, question? Second by Denise Harper, Senator Harper Angel. Okay. We do have a question from Senator Southward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just trying to get a handle on the definition of school counselor in Section 1 at the very beginning. It's an individual that holds a certificate, and the mental health services provider is a licensed or certified school counselor. So throughout the language, it says school counselor or mental health provider. And then over here on the reporting, we're eliminating the counselor and only doing mental health provider. Is there a reason why this counselor information is not useful anymore? I may have missed something.
I don't think in terms of taking away anything from school counselor is done. That's just statutory language that's been there, but just trying to add in terms of now all mental health service providers is the only thing we're looking to do.
So is there a difference, or is there a reason why the definition of school counselor still exists then on page 1?
Senator Wise,
Yes.
over here, Mahek.
Heck, thank you so much.
I could help answer that question.
If you would identify yourself for the record.
Certainly can. Mehek Kalwer with Kentucky Youth Advocates, Chief Policy Officer. There, in the school-based mental health definition, school counselors are included in that. So that definition is broad enough to include those providers as well.
All inclusive, but the counselors are still separated because they maybe do some things somewhere else in this world that is not the same as everybody inclusively.
Yes, I believe
Okay,
so.
thank you.
Thank you. We do have a motion and we do have a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Gibbons. Senator Harper Angel. Senator Higdon. Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator West. Senator Wilson. And Chairman Wise.
Aye. By a vote of 12 to 0, Senate Bill 102 passes.
Got a question.
Question?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator West?
is it too early for the consent calendar?
I think it is still too early for consent this time. Thank you for asking,
Yep.
though. Next bill on our agenda for today is Senate Bill 83. Senate Bill 83, the sponsor is Senator Robbie Mills. It's an act relating to athletics. Senator Mills, thank you for making your way to the table. Not sure if you have any guests today that will be with you to testify for the record.
I do not. No.
Senator Mills, before we get started, there is a proposed committee sub that can be found in members' packets. Is it okay at this time if we take a motion to adopt the sub?
Yes, please.
We have a motion, and we do have a second on the sub. Is there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the sub, please do so by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Senator Mills, if you would, just identify yourself for the record. First, welcome to the Education Committee. You're welcome to proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Wise. I'm Robbie Mills. I'm state senator from the 4th District in Northwest Kentucky. Thank you, Senator Wise and committee members. I have a few prepared remarks, and I'll be happy to answer questions as well. KRS 156.070 addresses general powers and duties of the State Board of Education, and specifically addresses and directs, quote unquote, an agency to manage interscholastic athletics in common schools, which we all know as the Kentucky High School Athletic Association, or KHSAA. This section directs KHSA in sports to offer, membership of their board, ages of participation, homeschool athletes, and medical exams required. Within this section of the statute is where Senate Bill 83 suggests we address in a very simple, plainly laid out fashion how the Kentucky KHSAA shall handle the subject of biological males, properly known as transgender female athletes. Currently, the KHSAA has a regulation that addresses this subject, but I believe there are flaws in this regulation that could ultimately leave a female high school athlete competing unfairly with a biological male. Additionally, additional regulations are subject to change of board of directors and the change of governor appointments. A statute addition to address this topic, in my opinion, is in order and will assure that future female high school athletes are allowed the opportunity to compete against biological females in the sport of their choosing. Senate Bill 83 places in statute two simple sentences that clearly direct KHSAA to promulgate administrative regulations or bylaws that provide that an athletic activity or sport designated as girls shall not be open to members of the male sex. It additionally states that for the purpose of determining eligibility to participate in athletic activities or sports, the sex of the student shall be determined by the student's biological sex as indicated on the student's certified birth certificate as originally issued at the time of birth or adoption by the Kentucky Vital Statistics Branch or the state registrar or agencies of another state charged with the issuance of vital records. This statute change clearly addresses the flaw in the current regulation that surgical changes in hormonal therapy of any length of time reduces the physical advantage that a biological male has over a biological female. Boys have athletic advantages even before puberty in cardiovascular endurance, muscular strength, muscular endurance, speed, agility, and power tests. An Australian study shows that a 9-year-old male was faster by on short sprints by 9.8%. In a mile run, he was faster by 16.6%. He could broad jump 9.5% further, do 33% more push-ups, and had 13.8% stronger grip. Male athletes still have advantages even after testosterone suppression. The evidence shows that hormone therapy in males after puberty does not substantially eliminate the male athletic advantage. Men generally have a 60% greater grip strength and 90% greater arm strength than women do. After 2 years of testosterone suppression, men experienced only a 9% decrease in their grip strength and a 33% reduction in arm strength. These results are demonstrated across the spectrum of athletic tests that were made in leg strength, push-ups, running speed, and muscle mass. Two recent studies of real biological males competing as females show the true physiological advantage even after hormone therapy. CC Telfar failed to make the 2016-2017 NCAA National Championships in 2 different hurdle events as a male. In 2019, when racing as a female and taking testosterone suppression therapy, Telfar was the national champion in the 400-meter hurdle event and came in third in the 110-meter hurdle event. His actual times increased in both events despite hormone therapy. Currently, Lee Thomas is the current UPenn swimmer that competed earlier in her career as a male. He rated 462nd in the nation at that point in the 100 and 200 freestyle event. Recently competing as a female, his rating is now number 1 in the nation. A teammate has recently been quoted as stating, "When it comes to sports competition, the biology of sex is a separate issue from someone's gender identity." Mr. Chairman, I've been asked by several constituents and several legislators to address this issue that's before us today. While I do not have this specific issue occurring in my district, there are parents of female athletes that are concerned about this happening in our state. Youth sports are huge in the state of Kentucky. I personally have spent 19 years traveling with my children, watching them play soccer on travel teams across the Midwest. And I'm sure in this room there are many stories just like that. A lot of time and effort is put into achieving a certain level of mastery in a sport. And it would be crushing for a young lady to train her whole career to have it end up competing against a biological male in the state tournament or state finals. This occurred in Massachusetts recently to Selena Soule. She missed qualifying in the state 55-meter final and an opportunity to qualify for the state championship by one sport in 2019 season. 2 of the spots ahead of her were taken by biological males. As legislators, we go to conferences every year and learn about trends and how we can address issues that are headed our state's way. We are encouraged to think ahead based on other states' experiences. Senate Bill 83 is thinking ahead, so you or I do not have a Selena Soule in our district, a young lady who loses an opportunity to compete in the sport that she loves. Mr. Chairman, in summary, the 2 sentences that are being added to KRS 156.070, in my opinion, clearly direct KHSAA in the area of biological males competing as females And I would ask for your approval of this bill and send it on to the Senate floor for a vote. Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if you'd like to wait for questions at the end, I can do that.
Senator Mills, thank you for your testimony. Members, here's what I'm going to ask. For questions directly related right now to Senator Mills, for those that wish to ask, we do have people that have signed up. We have about 45 minutes to be out of this room. I will ask right now members that wish to ask directly to Senator Mills on the bill. I will allow that at this time, and then for testimony afterwards. Senator Thomas, you're signed up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Mills, are you aware of any issues that have come before the Kentucky High School Athletic Association now that have challenged their regulation or issues like you talked about in Massachusetts? I'm not aware of any problems that have occurred here in Kentucky with regard to transgender athletes of whatever sex competing in those their events.
Yep.
Are you aware of any problems that we've encountered in Kentucky? Because I am not.
Yeah, I am not. And that's what I touched on in my testimony, that, we in the legislature, we are kind of, encouraged to look and look forward, be forward thinking on issues. I believe this is a forward issue, looking forward in this issue. I believe there are openings to where a biological male could be competing as a female in their junior and senior year in high school after they meet the qualifications that are in the regulations currently. So that's why I brought a couple of sentences that kind of clarify where the legislature and KHSAA are at on this issue. I think it's needed. I do think that it's coming. Yes, sir.
Any other member? Any other questions? This time I'm sorry, Senator Neal. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does this bill preclude a person who is identified as female at birth but goes through the hormonal treatments, identifies as male, etc., or competing as a male?
Currently, KHSAA allows that to occur. I believe you've seen females competing in male sports in football, baseball. I think they allow that to occur as it is, so it does not preclude that from happening.
Thank you.
Basically, we're looking at, Senator Neal, we're looking at the situation because of the biological advantage that males have over females, and that is what specifically the concern is, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
Thank you. This time I'm going to allow testimony. We have one that is signed up pro and then multiple for con. I'm going to allow the one that's the pro if he would make his way, and I think it's David Wells, if he would make his way to the testimony table from the Family Foundation. After that, I will go in order of those that are opposing the bill. Once again, we've got roughly 40 minutes. I ask that you please keep your comments on point and on target. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chairman Wise and members of the committee. David Walls, with Executive Director of the Family Foundation, a nonprofit organization that stands for Kentucky families and the biblical values that make them strong. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on such an important issue. Women deserve to compete on a level playing field. Allowing males to compete in women's sports destroys fair competition and women's athletic opportunities. Unfortunately, across the nation, we see more and more instances where males have taken away championships, records, and countless athletic opportunities from female athletes. That's why we are so thankful for Senator Mills and his faithful leadership for multiple legislative sessions on the Save Women's Sports Act. We support Senate Bill 83's common sense protections for girls in K through 12. But we do also believe that to fully protect Kentucky's girls, we must also protect college athletes. While protecting any of Kentucky's female athletes is an important step, only protecting some of them sends the wrong message and is inconsistent with Title IX's guarantee of equal opportunity, including equal opportunity in sports. The numerous advantages that males have over female athletes are even more prominent by college, where margins become tighter, the competitive edge can be a deciding factor, and the consequences of those advantages are far greater. titles, professional athletic opportunities, and limited roster spots are all on the line. As was mentioned, college athlete Leah Thomas from the University of Pennsylvania is proof of what is at stake and of the importance in also protecting fair competition among college athletes. By switching to the women's team, Thomas has set program records and, as was mentioned already by Senator Mills, has moved up in rankings to #1 as female. And I'll also mention another important issue after the NCAA's recent decision on this issue. Rather than standing by female athletes by adopting a policy that ensures fairness, the NCAA punted to a patchwork of national and international organizations, some of which allow men to compete on women's teams with no protections or no preconditions, and others which have no policy at all. It is urgent for this body to set a clear, fair, and scientifically based policy to guide schools throughout the state and to guarantee equal opportunity for our daughters and granddaughters. This unfairness, particularly at the college level, is what has energized so many folks in Kentucky and across the nation to take action on this issue. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem attempted to exclude college athletes from protections last year, but just a week or 2 weeks ago has now signed a bill that includes female college athletes. Let's ensure that Kentucky female athletes, kindergarten through college, have a level playing field to compete and win. In closing, in sports, biology is what matters. When we ignore science and biological realities, women pay the price. Allowing males to compete in girls' sports reverses nearly 50 years of advances for women, and that is neither fair nor equal. We support moving forward on Senate Bill 83, and we look forward to working together to ensure college athletes are protected as well. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak, and we do thank Senator Mills for his leadership on this very important issue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Senator Thomas.
I have a question.
Sir.
Mr. Wallace, I like to think that I too am a man who cherishes families and believes in biblical values.
Sir.
So my question to you is the same one that I had of my colleague, Senator Mills. I'm not aware of anyone who's challenged the Kentucky High School Athletic Association regulations. And just a couple years ago, I was at a program investigations committee where the commissioner came forward and talked about how proud he was of this policy. You've talked a lot about college athletics, but here in Kentucky, are you aware of anyone who's challenged the KHSAA regulations or any complaints about how that regulation is unfair with regard to scholastic sports here in Kentucky?
Well, I'll echo what Senator Mills said in terms of not aware of a specific issue, but I will say it is certainly appropriate and needed for this body to step in and set a common sense policy.
Well, that doesn't answer my question. My
Yes,
question
sir.
is just a yes or no question. I mean, are you aware of anyone who's come forward and complained about the KHSAA regulation? That's a simple yes or no question.
Complain about the way the current regulation
Yes.
is written? Absolutely, yes, sir. Very much concerned about the way that policy is.
Are you aware of anyone who's come forward and complained about it or said that regulation is unfair? Just a yes or no question, Mr. Walls. Please answer my question.
Yes, sir, I am.
Senator Southworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just realized I may have got my question with the wrong speaker at the table, but perhaps you or somebody may know the answer. How are the traveling teams and other non-high school athletics regulated? Does the High School Athletics Association have anything to do with, let's say, our middle school teams or anything?
There's none.
So are we leaving out, because he mentioned K through 12, are we leaving out K through 8 on this bill?
Senator Mills.
The bill is for the bill is for K through 12.
So the High School Athletic Association regulates the elementary and the middle school?
I believe they give advisory decisions.
That is correct.
To
But the
middle
travel
school.
teams, no.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because I've had multiple constituent complaints over the past year or two about, well, my daughter's getting ready to go out on the field or whatever, and I'm really worried because there's a team from out of state coming in to play them, and they allow all these boys or whatever on this team, and it's just been a really really emotional situation for these parents and grandparents, thinking their kids are going to feel bad about themselves because they're not winning whenever they have an out-of-state team that allows these people. So I feel like if we're talking about and we mentioned the NCAA here, if we're talking about patchworks, when we're going to have, teams coming in to play us, our constituents are experiencing this issue, whether or not it's a Kentucky-based athlete as of right now. And if we shore this up in Kentucky, then that's going to be a little different mark on the world on, okay, you need to understand what we're doing in Kentucky. It'll send a message to other teams that are competing with our girls. And I hope that will enhance our opportunities for our girls. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on. James Craig, please identify yourself for the record, please, and the association that you're with. Looks like Jefferson County Board of Education, I think.
Yes, Senator James Craig, Jefferson County Board of Education.
Good.
I know your time is precious this morning, Senator, Chairman, and I'll be brief. I'm here today on behalf of the schools in the district that I represent and on behalf of the students who attend those schools. We don't know how many transgender students are in our schools today. So we don't know how many students are going to be potentially adversely affected by this bill, intentionally or not. But we do know the importance of athletic participation for those students. One of the most important indicators in Jefferson County for student achievement is the students' sense of belonging in their school, the way that they feel, the way that if they feel safe, if they're welcomed in their school. And we know that participating in athletics is one of the best ways that we can improve a student's sense of belonging at their school. There are transgender students that attend the 3 middle schools and the 3 high schools in the district that I represent. And this bill is going to prevent some of them from participating in athletic activities with their students. The consequence of this bill is going to harm those students' sense of belonging in their buildings, and it is going to adversely affect their ability to achieve as students. I'm passionate about student achievement in Jefferson County. I'm sure you are all passionate about student achievement for all students throughout the state of Kentucky. I would urge you to vote against this bill today to ensure that we have that tool available to us to ensure that all students, transgender or not, have the ability to succeed in their schools. There are students who attend schools in my district who are signed up to speak, and I hope that you will listen to their testimony this morning and that you will listen to the way that this bill is going to harm their ability to achieve in their schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm just having a difficult time following your logic. We do allow girls to play on boys' team, and we champion those girls because when they step up to that level and succeed, we really celebrate that. But I don't see that there's anything in this bill that excludes any children from playing a sport. Just because they make the transition to female doesn't exclude them from continuing to compete at the boys' level. So how can you say they're going to be denied an opportunity when in fact they're not going to be denied an opportunity? They still will be able to compete. They can still participate in the norms of teamwork and self-discipline, things of that nature. So I don't know how you can say, and I think it's an unfair indictment to say that this discriminates, because again, they can continue to compete. Unless you're looking at something at the professional level, and we have a very small percentage of our children that have that capabilities. Again, if we're promoting teamwork, discipline, things of that nature, you can do that regardless. So I just don't think that you're making a fair statement there. So are we truly discriminating?
Senator, of course, I'm not going to say that you're discriminating. What I'm going to say is that the practical effect of the bill is to eliminate the right for transgender students to participate in sports
Well, that's why I
as
take
the gender.
exception. We're not excluding them from participating in sports, but they're going to participate.
I think
at-
that you are, Senator, and I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you. I think that you are, because to ask a transgender student who's 15 or 16 or 17 years old to participate in an athletic activity with students who do not identify as they do is an incredibly traumatizing event. It's going to be harmful for that individual student. The practical effect is to put that decision on a 14, 15, or 16-year-old student undergoing one of the most significant things in their life, their transition, and asking them to participate in a sport as a gender that they do not identify with practically means that they will not.
But you have no issue with girls being traumatized by having an athlete that was previously a boy participating against them, particularly when this new transgender has definite physical capabilities that exceed girls. You have no problem with that.
We have 100,000 students in Jefferson County Public Schools. I have not heard of a single student with the complaint that you lodged, Senator.
Well, we're talking
And
in
as
theory
Senator
here.
Thomas said earlier, we're unaware of this complaint existing today in the state of Kentucky. But I do see, when I go to my middle and my high schools, I do see transgendered students there. And I do see that they will be harmed directly by this bill. I beg you to vote against it.
I appreciate your testimony, but I'll respectfully disagree. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you for your testimony. Senator Carroll?
He's already left the table.
Mr. Craig, sorry. My apologies.
And I apologize. Would you say that playing on co-ed teams is harmful?
For a transgender student who wants to participate on a team with other students of the biological sex that they identify with, eliminating that right for those students, I think, is harmful. I think co-ed sports are a wonderful thing. My daughter plays on a male soccer team actually right now.
So if you have a male student identifying as a female playing on a male team, that's a co-ed team. We've always accepted that. I don't get your argument.
And I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
It's very simple. Co-ed has been acceptable throughout generations. We do that. That's part of society. We do sports in that manner. So I guess I don't understand if the male student wishes to identify as a female, a transgendered student playing on the male team is nothing more than a co-ed team. How can that be harmful to that person?
As I said earlier, there are students from my district who are here to testify on this bill, and I think listening to those students is the best way to get to that question, Senator Carroll.
No other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. To move along, I'm going to ask the following two to come to the table. Jackie McGranahan, Chris Hartman. If those two would make their way to the table, please, as we move through here. Reminder again, 25 minutes left with the committee. If you would please identify yourselves to the record, please proceed.
My name is Jackie McGranahan, and my pronouns are she, her, and I work for the American Civil Liberties Union of Kentucky. And good afternoon, Chairman Wise and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. The American Civil Liberties Union and the American Civil Liberties Union of Kentucky
Check your microphone there, please. Make sure it's a green light on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, gotcha. Thank you.
By imposing a wholesale ban on girls and young women who are transgender participating in athletics consistent with their gender identity, Senate Bill 83 discriminates based on transgender status and sex in violation of the United States Constitution and Title IX of the Civil Rights Act. Trans youth, just like all youth, simply want to participate in the activities they love, including athletics. Trans students participate in sports for the same reasons other young people do, to challenge themselves, improve fitness, and be part of a team. Excluding trans students from participation just deprives them of opportunities available to their peers and sends the message that they are not worthy of a full life. Having the opportunity to participate in sports results in positive outcomes for students: better grades, greater homework completion, higher educational and occupational aspirations, and improved self-esteem. There are real issues with gender parity in sports and when it comes to funding, resources, pay equity, and more. Promoting baseless fears about trans athletes does nothing to address these problems. By singling out transgender women and girls and enacting a sweeping ban on participation in athletics, Senate Bill 83 violates both the United States Constitution and Title IX of the Civil Rights Act. Other states have passed similar laws and are facing litigation due to the unconstitutional nature of this legislation. Ultimately, this bill violates the United States Constitution and federal civil rights law, puts Kentucky at risk of potentially losing money in federal funding. It harms transgender youth, and all to solve a problem that plainly does not exist. Transgender students already live and go to school in Kentucky. They play sports. They enjoy time with their friends. They deserve a chance to succeed and thrive like every other student. For these reasons, we urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Wise, Vice Chairman West, Mr. President Pro Tem, members of the committee, thank you for your time and consideration today. I'm Chris Hartman. I'm Executive Director of the Fairness Campaign, and I will be brief. Last night, I sent you an email with some information that I'll reference here. I want to start this morning where I think we can all agree. First, we believe that all people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, including transgender kids. Second, we believe that all kids deserve to grow up healthy, safe, and supported in their communities, and that this too includes transgender kids. Like all kids, transgender kids simply want to go to school, play with their friends, and feel included. When we are talking about sports, every child wants the same things: to play with their friends, get a good education, and be happy and healthy. And every child should have that opportunity to play with their friends in sports that help them stay active and learn about teamwork, discipline, and sportsmanship, including transgender kids. The truth is, there are very few transgender kids who play sports beyond middle school. And they play sports for the same reason as every other kid: to do something they love and spend invaluable memory-making time with their friends that will last their whole lives. In the rare instance that a transgender child goes on to play sports in high school or beyond, sports associations already have policies in place to ensure a level playing field. Those policies deserve to be revisited from time to time to ensure that they are fair and inclusive and reflect the best science, but we do believe that that work is best left to the experts in each sport and medical professionals. But let me be very clear here. As I shared in my email last night, the current Kentucky High School Activities Association policy, which I sent you, that is in place today, does not allow for transgender girls to participate on high school girls' sports teams in Kentucky. So if your goal today is to keep transgender girls from playing girls' sports in high school in Kentucky, you can go home without voting on this bill, and you've still accomplished your goal. But if you do pass this bill, the people that you will harm are our youngest and our most vulnerable transgender kids, middle schoolers who do not deserve this level of unfair scrutiny and debate over whether or not they should be able to play with their friends and be included in school life. And I'd like you to meet some of them, some of the families that you will hurt, some of the kids who you will actually impact are here today to share their own stories. I'm happy to take any questions, but I would like to introduce the first family, Brian, Jennifer, and Fisher.
Chris, before that, we do have a question.
Yes,
I
Mr.
just
Chairman.
Yep. Senator West has a question for you.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is not for you. It's McGranahan, I'm sorry. You mentioned that a law like this, if passed, would violate Title IX. And so that would be a federal case. Do you have any federal case law citations to present that would, has that been decided at the federal level that this would violate Title IX?
I do not believe that the cases have been decided, and this is our interpretation. We believe that this is a violation.
May I, Mr. Chairman, as well? So there are currently federal court judges who have stayed these similar laws in West Virginia and Idaho, and pending lawsuits in Tennessee, Florida, and more states.
Okay, so there's not currently existing federal precedent on the books
Besides the stays right now, so
right. So
temporary
the
injunction.
stay is a lot different than a finding. So that was my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Real quick, Chris, I have the Fishers and the Lows that are signed up. Just want to make sure if they would just make their way. We have one more after that, but 15 minutes or so, a little bit around that time frame. If you would please identify yourself for the record, please, and you may proceed.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Green button there, it should pop up. It's the middle button to push.
Hello, I am Fisher Wells. Hello, Chairman Weiss. I'm Fisher Wells, and I would like to tell you my experience on the Westport girls field hockey team. After COVID, and we were just getting back in, the girls field hockey team barely existed. It was just a thing that Westport had that nobody joined, because everybody wanted to play, like, volleyball or something. But then, 3 people signed up. One of them was me. And I tried my very hardest to get the minimum amount of people for the team, and we got that. And on our first game, I got news that I couldn't play. And so I didn't play. I sat at home, watching television. And then I got so many texts from my friends supporting me. And then, I got these wonderful pictures. We tied on that game, barely, by the way, which was fun. But later it was resolved, and then I started to find out how disgusting the reason I couldn't play was. And I have made a ton of very nice friends on this team, and we've had a fun time. In one game, the ball rolled up one of my teammates' skirts. Her face described it all. It was very funny. And I just have made so many friends, and me and my friends have started playing on a league at the YMCA, and that has been extremely fun. We even won our second game. We've lost a lot of games. But that was because we were mostly new to the sport, and we were all getting invested in this really awesome sport that is just really fun. It taught us how to be sportsmanlike and very calm about things. I really don't want this bill to pass because that means I can't play, and it will be extremely detrimental to my mental health as well. Because I know that sports is a great way for me to cope with things. Like, it's just a good way for me to cope with things. And it's why I recovered so very quickly from not being able to play, because later, like a few days later, I found out I could play, and I was able to play and have fun, and my coach was crying. Like, she was like, "Oh my gosh, Fisher!" It's disgusting that this bill is even suggested. It's terrible, and I've worked really hard and practiced so many hours. I hope you don't vote on this bill, and I hope I can play in 8th grade. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
My name is Jennifer. My name is Jennifer Alonso. I'm Fisher's mother.
Is your microphone on?
It is, but maybe it's not.
Thank you.
Am I okay?
You're good. Right. Thank you, ma'am.
So Chairman Wise and committee members, thank you for your time to allow our family to testify today. This bill directly, as you heard, impacts our family and especially our daughter, Fisher. We do understand that this is a complicated issue, especially if you don't know someone who is transgender. going to go off script here for a minute and tell you that you probably do know someone who is transgender and who is hurt by the attitudes that society puts in front of them. As the parents of a transgender child, we had a lot to learn ourselves, and we had to talk with other people and other parents of transgender children. What we learned more than anything is that loving our kid is the most important, along with doing everything we can do to ensure that she's treated the same way as everybody else, with dignity and respect for who she is, and that she's included in all aspects of life and school. Fisher lights up on the hockey field, and I want to put in here that Fisher is not the best player, and our team loses more than we win. She's benefited in all the ways other kids benefit from playing sports. She's formed invaluable friendships, learned how to work on a team, and follow the coach's lead. She's put in the hard work that builds character for every kid in sports, and I will say that her teammates, the teams that play against her, and her coach, her athletic director, the senior director in our county, and I hear now our superintendent are behind her. I want to thank those people.
Good morning. My name is Brian Wells, and I'm Fisher's father. We just want to see our daughter be able to play the sport that she loves with her friends that she loves. As Fisher's testimony attends, she was instrumental in the team forming, and she's right, they never had more than one extra person. So they were often outnumbered on the playing field. And because of all the work that she put into to make the team happen, she was so driven. It was really touching for me to see a 7th grader driven to make something happen at their school so much, particularly for sports. And of course, it was heartbreaking when we received the call that she may not be able to play. It was the needle scratch moment that seemed to signify the end of one part of our lives and the beginning of another, much more contentious part. Particularly after all the hours of practice she had put in and the work that she'd put in to recruit the team and the bonds that she was already forming. Fortunately, the inclusive language of the JCPS guidelines regarding extracurricular activities allowed her to play, and we were so proud to watch her and her teammates' hard work pay off. Now that the season's over, Fisher has mentioned her Y League play, and she continues to recruit more kids to join her, more girls to play field hockey. But a bill like this could stop all of that. I think when people debate this, and we've heard this here today, they're very focused on highly competitive college sports. And this also affects kids like Fisher, who just want to play sports with their friends, have fun, learn to work together, get exercise, and enjoy the game. And as my wife mentioned, Fisher's contributions to the team were not measured in points, in goals made or goals blocked. She didn't outrun anyone. There's no evidence of an intrinsic physical advantage. Everyone out there was demonstrating the time and effort that they put in, and we saw that. She contributed fundamentally, though, and most critically, in terms of her sportsmanship, in terms of the spirit that she brought to the team. No one cheered her teammates on harder. No one cheered for the rare goals louder. She made the team happen and continues to do that today. For all of the benefits and the protections that you seek to instill with SB 83, for all that in girls' sport you seek to protect, you are inadvertently closing doors. You are closing doors to students and girls like Fisher, and you, in some cases, may be closing doors on her fellow teammates. They would not have had a chance to play this season if not for Fisher's work. They would not have had the chance to enjoy Fisher as a friend or a teammate. That is why we're asking you to vote no.
Thank you for all the testimony. We have one more family. That's going to run us up to the time. I know Terrence Sullivan has signed in. Terrence, I think if you're in the audience, you've also submitted a letter that's in the folders of the members. So just want members to note that testimony he may be given is also in your folders. If you would please identify yourself for the record, and if you move the microphones close to you and just push the button on there to make the green light come on. Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us today. My name is Ray Strobel, and this is my daughter, Cedar. She just turned 8 in December. She loves gymnastics, animals, collecting rocks, and playing ninja. She loves playing with her 2 younger siblings, ages 5 and 4. She started a rock club at her school this year. She also loves playing soccer. She played this last fall in a co-ed community league with other 6 and 7-year-olds. She loved being outside, getting to run, learn to kick and dribble, and especially loved it when she made a goal. She was good, but not the best on the team, but she loved learning and improving. Cedar actually, just the way that the teams played out, she was actually a full year older than any of the other kids on our team, but you couldn't tell because she's small for her age. She looked like middle of the road, if not one of the smaller kids. She really looked forward to going to practices and games, and she especially looked forward to playing with Naomi, Owen, and Nora. And I think actually Nora scored the most goals on the team because she had played longer in her life than Cedar had. We live in Breckenridge County on a farm that's been in my husband's family for 7 generations. So Cedar is the 8th generation on that land and in that community. She goes to Irvington Elementary and is in the Breckenridge County school system. We love our school and we love our school district. So when Cedar was born, we thought that she was a boy. When she was 2, we got a box of hand-me-down clothes that happened to have a dress in it, and it became her favorite article of clothing that she wore over and over again. In preschool, her favorite shirt was a fuchsia sequins sparkle shirt, and I remember that I had a conversation with her on the first day that she wanted to wear it to preschool. I said, some people might feel uncomfortable seeing a boy wearing a girl's shirt, and some people might say some mean things to you, and are you sure that you want to wear that? And she thought about it. I saw her little wheels turning, and she said, yes, I want to wear it. In kindergarten, she would always play the girl in imaginary play, and so when she was 6 in the 1st grade, she told us that she wanted to be called a girl. So let me repeat that. She told us that she was a girl when she was 6. Before she even knew the word transgender. Soon after, she announced to her class at school that she wanted to be called a girl, so all her friends now know her as she. And I understand that if you haven't known transgender kids, it can be confusing. It's been a learning journey for us as parents, but one that really has profound benefits. So far, she hasn't done much with school sports. That starts in 3rd grade next year. When the flyer comes home, and if she says that she wants to try out, I want her to be able to. She's small for her age, so she might not be the best on the team, but she'll be good because she has a fighting spirit. She loves to be active and loves to do what her friends are doing. And if she wants to try out for something, I want her to be able to and not be banned because of who she is. And to address one of the questions earlier, I just asked her back here in the room, I said, hey, if you wanted to play basketball in 2 years, if you wanted to play, would you want to play on the girls' team or the boys' team? Because that's how they have it in school. They don't have a co-ed team. It's labeled girls and boys. And she said, girls, because I'm a girl. And then I said, but if the only way for you to play was to play on the boys' team, would you want to play? And she said no. As a parent, like any parent, I want to protect my child. And I want to pave the way for each of them to pursue their interests, dreams, and passions. On our journey, we've learned that a trans kid needs what any kid needs. They need unconditional love. They need acceptance for who they are. And they need support from their family, friends, and community. They need to feel that they belong. And support from that community includes being able to play on the sports team with their friends, the ones that they feel the closest to. Cedar is feisty, headstrong, loving, and one of the most generous people I know. Please don't limit opportunities for my child just because of who she is.
Thank you for your testimony. Any members? Please proceed.
And Cedar actually, I gave her the choice whether or not she wanted to come today, and I said she didn't have to talk, and she said she wanted to say just a little bit.
Hi, I'm Cedar, and I'm a Hi, I'm Cedar, and I'm a transgender girl. I really like playing on soccer. I really like playing soccer because it is fun to hang out with my friends. Also, I like gymnastics because it is very fun to, and it helps me stretch out. I decided to talk to you today because I want to help my friends play sports on girl teams. Playing on a girl's team should be our right as a girl. Not just my right, it's all girls' rights, because there are other trans girls out there like me.
Thank you for participating today, and thank you for your testimony. Do we have any questions from any members before we take a motion on the bill? Do we have a motion on the bill? We have a motion from Senator Wilson. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second from Senator West. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to vote aye and explain my vote.
Please proceed.
You know, it's obvious that the issue here is competition, and the issue is fairness to those upper echelon athletes who spend much of their life in an endeavor to be at the top of their sport, only to be knocked out by a transgendered athlete. And to me, that seems a separate issue from young children being able to play on whichever team. And I don't think the importance of the sex at those younger ages is really that important. That's why we have a lot of co-ed leagues. It's about the lessons you learn in that sport. It's really not about, the dedication to be the very best always. It's just participation. So it's difficult to balance this, but I think there has got to be a consensus that we've got to be fair to everyone. And if it's a female athlete who is at the top of her sport, let's say we get into high school, and she gets knocked down by a transgendered athlete, that's not fair, and no one can say that is fair. But not allowing a younger student who is biologically male and identifies as a female, not being able to play on a female team, I struggle with that also, because it's about the lessons learned. It's about spending time with your friends, and that's what those levels of sports are about. If you get on a travel team or something of that nature where it is much more competitive, that's different. So there are so many different layers of this issue, and you all have to, and for my part, this is not about hate for any kid, and it's very insulting that people try to make it that way. It's about trying to be fair to all of our kids. There is no, if a young person decides to identify as a different sex, that's not for me to decide. That really means nothing to me. That's who they want to be, and it's not for me to judge them for that. So I'm going to vote my aye to carry this on, but a lot of discussion and a lot of layers to this, but understand that the vote is not out of any effort to harm anyone. It's about trying to be fair to all of our kids. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Senator Givens. Senator Harper Angel.
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
I vote no, Mr. Chairman, and with all due respect to the sponsor, I feel like this bill is unnecessary, and it's looking for a solution to a problem that doesn't exist, particularly since no one could testify about any issues with the current policy that's been in effect for 10 years with the KHSAA. So I think that we're not being preemptive. We're looking for problems that don't exist, and let our kids be kids and play sports.
Senator Higdon. Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to explain my no vote.
Please proceed.
I found the testimony of the Fishers and the individuals that followed compelling. I sat here thinking to myself, trying to dissect what this really meant in the real world. But it became clear to me that what my friend spoke of earlier is really the central purpose of the exchange and interaction of young people in the educational process. And I didn't see from the context of what was being said here whether or not we should be inserting ourselves from a high when we already have regulations that actually are right on the ground in real life experience that is being managed and asserted now. So I don't see why we should insert ourselves in this situation. We're not close to the ground. We cannot deal with each situation. We do not know the nuances of it in a given situation. And the fundamental reason for them to participate, the kids to participate in the first place, I think were explained very early and didn't really contrast with the comments that my learned colleague expressed earlier. So for those reasons, I vote no.
Senator Southworth.
Split my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, it's fairly obvious I'm usually one of, if not the only female on these committees. And a few weeks ago, I realized it was interesting because we've been talking about this bill and I didn't really know about science. I mean, I know about science generally, but I didn't know the specific science. Men have larger lungs. This is why when I'm walking up the stairs in the Capitol to session and I'm totally out of breath talking to one of you all, you're like, oh yeah, okay, great. And I'm like, and so I want to highlight that because I feel like we have a problem here. We have a problem. I mean, everybody keeps saying we haven't heard any complaints. Well, I've heard the complaints, so I'm not sure where everybody else has been, or maybe we're all talking about two different things here. I may be confused, but I've heard complaints in our state, and obviously we're aware of news stories from other countries, other states, and so forth. I'm feeling like we might need an amendment here, though, because I'm sorry, did I register my yes vote first?
You have not yet.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I'm breaking all the rules.
So please
I'm
proceed.
registering my yes vote, and now I'm explaining it.
Please proceed.
I feel like I'm voting yes, but I feel like we need an amendment to make this a little bit more comprehensive, because what we have a problem with, a young child has been playing on a girls' team for how many years, and now all of a sudden they hit high school or college or whatever, and all of a sudden, boom, they got to get all new teammates, totally different echelon of things. I think that could be detrimental as well, but I have a hard time with the rules being different from high school to college to young kids, so forth, because we could sit here and talk about the nuances, but I just think that you need to have vertical alignment with these programs. So I think we need to get this not just KHSAA, whatever it is. We need to make sure this is actually inclusive so that what we're doing works for one, works for all. And I would not say that playing sports is a constitutional right, but the really hard part about our Constitution, and when you talk about Supreme Court cases relating to it, is when one person's right rubs against another person's right, who wins. And sometimes somebody loses, and I don't like that,
Thank
but
you,
it is
Senator.
what happens. Thank you.
Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explain my no vote, please.
Please cast your vote and proceed.
Well, I'd like to explain my no vote. I'm not going to repeat what Senator Harper Angel and Senator Neal said about the fact that we don't have this problem here because in all due respect, the KHSA has not received any complaints. We've not had any calls that their regulation has been unfair. But you're going to hear me say this a lot now that we're in the heart of this session, because we're going to see this issue played out in other pieces of legislation over and over again about problems not existing but coming before us. And I'm going to ask the question, why? Why are we going to deal with issues that are not problems in this state, or do not exist? What's the real agenda behind that? Or more importantly, what's the hidden agenda behind that? I'm going to ask those questions repeatedly over and over again. And what's the real agenda behind this when it's not a problem? I think we have to come to grips with that. You know, we talk about unfairness, and people are worried about being called discriminatory. But let's realize what's going on here. You know, if you're transgender and you're born a female, but now you want to play in a male sport, somehow that's okay. Okay, but if you're transgender and you were born a male, not want to play in a female sport, that's not okay. And I think that's what the courts are looking at now, is that sort of discriminatory aspect that violates what we call the equal protection of the laws, because you are treating people differently here. And why are you treating people differently, and what's the agenda behind that? Okay.
Senator, if you could sum it up real briefly. Thank you, sir.
I will sum it up by saying that I think fairness dictates, Mr. Chair, that people should be treated the same. And if students who are born male now want to play female sports and they're transgender, I'm okay with that. I have no problem with that whatsoever. And so that's why I vote no on this legislation.
Thank you.
Senator West,
Aye.
Senator Wilson, and Chairman Wise.
Aye. By a vote of 9-3, the bill passes. Senate Bill 83 moves on. I want to thank everybody for the discussion today. Thank you for the civility. We are adjourned.